Yes, Nintendo. It's been a while since I've done a video. I'm sorry, guys. Before I start the video, I just want to say I'm really sorry. It's just, I just want to wait till, like, 2018, because it's, like, just around the corner, and I have a lot of things coming to the channel for 2018, and I have to wait. So I have to, like, do these small videos like these, but it's okay, because I can't wait to do this video, because this is a video I've always wanted to do. So, Nintendo. Nintendo is a company that's been... like, I've loved Nintendo, like, ever since I've started to love video games, and that was when I was, like, 5 years old. So, it's been a pretty long time since I've been a Nintendo fan. And, you know, as I grew up, you know, I went into middle school and I started 5th grade. Yes, in my school, 5th grade is considered a middle school year. Thought you never ask. Anyway, so growing up, you know, people switch. Like, they just switch their interest. Like, in elementary, everyone's all over Nintendo. They're like, oh, Mario is so amazing. And then, once you hit middle school, like, everyone's talking about Call of Duty and stuff like that, and then I always question, why does everyone talk about that? Why does no one like Mario anymore? And I just realized that people are growing up and they think Nintendo is childish. Well, I think Sony and Microsoft fans are childish, and I'm gonna explain 10 reasons why they are, or at least why Nintendo is better than Sony and Microsoft. Alright, I can't wait to get into this. It's so... I can't wait. It's gonna be so exciting. Anyways, on to number 10. Number 10 is backwards compatibility, and in case you don't know, backwards compatibility is where you can play games or other software, like, on older hardware without, like, any modification. Or you can play older software on newer consoles without any modification. I just think Nintendo does it better. Like, yeah, I just think they do, backwards compatibility better because, like, they don't add too much when you do backwards compatibility, and that's why, you know, it's good, because then, like, if you have backwards compatibility on console and you add every single feature that was from the older console to the newer console, then getting the older console just becomes pointless. If you want to make it good, you want some limits on backwards compatibility, at the same time being able to play all the older games, while still not being able to do everything that the older consoles do. And that's what Sony and Microsoft, that's one thing they struggle with, is that when they do backwards compatibility, they just add every single feature from the older console, which makes the older console pointless, and they just improve on their older consoles. That's kind of what Nintendo does, but it's not to an extreme. Sony and Microsoft just like, they tweak their consoles so bad, it's really bad. Like, they just don't make much changes to their consoles, but, like, yeah, I just think Nintendo does backwards compatibility better. Anyway, on to number 9. Why is everyone praising Sony and Microsoft when it's not even them that are creating their games anyway? Yes, that's right. Sony and Microsoft do not make their own games. In fact, Nintendo only does. Out of these 3 companies, Nintendo is the only video game company out of these 3 that make their own games. PS4 and Xbox One, they don't do crap. All they do is make their consoles. That is it. We're going to talk about their consoles later in the video, but for now we're just going to talk about the developers. They pay their developers to make their own games. They don't do it. Maybe Xbox makes some PC games, but I've never seen PlayStation make a game before. They're only doing it from developers. All PS4 and Xbox does is just make their consoles. And we're going to talk about their consoles in a second. So yeah, I don't get why people praise these. I mean, I guess for the consoles, but they don't make their own games. And games are like the most important feature of a video game console. Like, you need games and they don't even make their own. So yeah, Nintendo just does that way better. Anyway, on to number 8. What if I told you that Nintendo actually saved video games? Yes, that's true. Nintendo has actually saved video games because of the video game crash of 1983. Now, for some of you modern people, you might be confused. You might be wondering, how could Nintendo possibly save video games? Well, I've looked up an article to talk more about this, and basically what the video game crash was, it was a large-scale recession in the video game industry that occurred from 1983 to 1985, primarily in North America because of market saturation. You can learn more about market saturation. It's too much to talk about. We're just talking about the video game crash. But this is an interesting part that I want to read. It says, the crash discriminated the then booming industry and led to the bankruptcy of several companies producing home computers and video game consoles in the region. It lasted about 2 years. Analysts of the time expressed doubts about the long-term viability of video game consoles and software. The North American video game console industry recovered a few years later, listen to this part, mostly due to the widespread success of the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, which was soft-launched in New York City in late 1985 and had become very popular in North America by 1987. And the reason why it became popular was in 1985, and the reason why the crash ended in 1985 was because Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, came out that same year. Super Mario Bros. Has saved the gaming industry. It became a widespread success. Like, literally, everyone back then at least had a copy of Super Mario Bros. In a Nintendo Entertainment System back in the 80s. I'm pretty sure almost everyone had a Nintendo Entertainment System with Mario Bros. I'm pretty sure. Because before that game came out, video games weren't doing so successful. Imagine if Mario Brothers did not exist. Imagine. That would mean that Sony and Microsoft would not exist either, because video games would be off the market. Therefore, Nintendo would save video games. And that's insane. That's a big accomplishment. I mean, like, video games has went so far ever since then. Like, ever since then, video games just went a long way. They went from 2D, and now they're in 3D, and now there are, like, all these brand new consoles and brand new games, and it's all because Mario and Nintendo saved it. That is probably one of the biggest reasons on this list. Anyway, let's get on to number 7. Okay, number 7 is Nintendo was more caring, fun, and nice to their fans than Sony and Microsoft is. And I feel like Sony and Microsoft only do this for their for the money, but I can tell that Nintendo really has a good time, and they really do care about the fans because they always give them what they want. Okay, most of the time. Cold Peach jokes aside, Sony and Microsoft I just don't feel like they care about their fans, like, not even in the slightest. I mean, Nintendo's always trying to have fun. That's one word. That's like probably like the best word to describe Nintendo. They're fun. They love their fans. If they didn't love their fans, they would do just like what Sony and Microsoft are doing. They would just have other video game developers develop their own games. They would not work on their consoles as much as they already do. they're just really nice. They're just a really good company. Anyway, on to number 6. The next reason is a very simple reason. Nintendo was a way more fun image. I mean, if you take a look at the Nintendo characters, Sony characters, and Microsoft characters, I mean, what do you think is more fun? This, or this? Yeah, I'm gonna have to stick with Nintendo on this one. Nintendo was just, it's appealing to the eye. I mean, a lot of the PlayStation and Xbox characters, they just don't look appealing. Like, but Nintendo, it's so colorful, it's fun, it's happy, you know? It's like there's no worries. Like, it's just so appealing. I mean, look at all the characters. I mean, you can't tell me that that is not appealing to look at. Because it really is. Just Sony and Microsoft just doesn't appeal to me like Nintendo does. And I think that's a pretty big problem if you think about it, because like if it's not appealing, I'm not gonna own it or have anything to do with it. But anyway, on to number 5. So this next reason might be a little dark, but it's still a reason why Nintendo is better than Sony and Microsoft. If you don't like things that scare you, then I suggest you skip this part or you leave the video, because this might be a little frightening to some of you. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know what you guys are afraid of. I'm just guessing. This next reason is that Xbox and Sony players Sony and Microsoft encourage kids to kill people in their families over these games. Well, maybe not encourage, but they sure don't help at all. I mean, I've heard horror stories where a kid goes crazy over Xbox or PlayStation, and they go over the extreme to killing their parents, or killing their brothers, or killing their sisters, or it's crazy. I mean, all over YouTube, there's videos of kids raging over Xbox and PlayStation. But surprisingly, there are no rage videos over Nintendo. Well, there is some. Those videos are, you can tell those ones are fake. I mean, look up Nintendo rages. You can tell they're fake. I've watched some of them. They're obviously fake. So some of the Sony Microsoft rages on YouTube are probably fake too. But the thing is, there's been news stories of kids killing their parents over Xbox and Microsoft and Sony. I've never. Could you ever think of a time where a kid raged over Nintendo so bad to the point where they kill their parents? No, Nintendo is never like that. They've never had a fan that has went that extreme. They're just, Sony Microsoft fans go crazy if they don't win at a game. It's insane. Look up some news stories on the internet if you want. But yes, some Sony Microsoft fans go so beyond that they kill their parents. It's crazy. But anyway, let's go on to number 4. Number 4 is that Nintendo is more creative. This is a big reason, because Nintendo is not only creative, they have a wide variety. I mean, look at all the interesting games. It's like they take their time with almost all their games they do. Like one game, some games they may look alike, but not exactly. So like Nintendo games differ. They change. They add new stuff. They do new stuff. They add new levels. They they add new enemies, they add new characters, but Sony and Microsoft, they don't do that, like, at all. Like, this is a good reason why Sony and Microsoft don't take that much time with their games. That's because they hardly change any of it. They may add like 1 or 2 new content in it, and then they just call it a game with some new levels. That's it. They don't do much with their games. But Nintendo, they're so good. Sometimes they even take years to finish their games. I mean, look at Smash Brothers. That game was announced in like 2012 and it released in 2014, which was 2 years. I mean, that's really a lot of time. And that may sound like a bad thing, but that's not in the slightest. I'd rather have them work on the game as much as they can. That fixes glitches and that makes the game complete. Like, Sony and Microsoft, they don't do that. That's why Nintendo is more creative. They have a wide variety. They take a lot of time on their games to come up with new stuff, and they're just really overall creative. That's another word to describe them. They're creative. They add a lot of new stuff. That's why it's so interesting to get these new games. I mean, look at Mario Odyssey. It looks so good. I might get it for Christmas, and I can't wait. I really can't wait to try it. I've seen videos, and it's amazing. It's different. It's new. It's nothing like we haven't seen before. The Sony and Microsoft, I just don't see a purpose to keep buying their games because they never change anything about their previous games. And that's one huge flaw. I just think that Nintendo just does these things better. Anyway, on to number 3. If you are a Sony and Microsoft fan that bullies Nintendo fans, then you might be confused about this reason. Because this reason is Nintendo fans are more mature than Sony and Microsoft fans. Now, if you bully people regularly for liking Nintendo, then there's something wrong. Because that means you're immature and you can't accept opinions. You know, me, I'm not bullying anyone. I mean, I'm not bullying anyone. I forgot to say at the video is that if you do like Sony and Microsoft, that's fine. I'm just stating my opinion and why I think it's better. Why I think Nintendo is better than Sony and Microsoft. This is kind of like a video for Nintendo fans. If you want to look up why Sony and Microsoft is better, then look it up, because I'm pretty sure there are results out there. These are just reasons why I think Nintendo is better. Now, second is that no matter what Sony and Microsoft fan I meet, most of the time they can't accept opinions. I've met some people who like Sony and Microsoft that can, but most of the time I saw people that just bully me and they just say, "Ha, you're so childish. You like Nintendo. Start growing up and play Microsoft or Sony." And it's stupid. It's stupid, and that's what's immature about them. Now, us Nintendo fans, we're not bullying anyone. Nintendo fans do the smart thing and explain why we like Nintendo, rather than calling people out on it. Rather than calling Sony Microsoft fans out on it. We just explain why we like it. That's mature. I mean, sure, we like these types of games, but it's not because it's childish or anything. Because it's not. We just like it because this is our interest. We like adventure games, and a lot of these games are about adventure. I don't even think about this game being childish. I just think of it as just fun. You know, I really have a great time playing these games, and I feel like they avoid it because people that say Sony and Microsoft are terrible, better, those are the same people that want to play Mario Kart with me, and it's weird. I just feel like sometimes they just try to avoid it, and they don't believe that they like Nintendo, but they really do. I just think that Nintendo fans are more mature. Anyways, let's get on to number 2. The most important reasons why I think Nintendo is more better than Sony and Microsoft is because a very simple reason. Sony and Microsoft copy Nintendo to beyond belief. Look at this picture. That is that you cannot tell me that Sony did not just copy Nintendo there. Like, the Wii Remote and Nunchuck has been copied for the PlayStation Move. It's like an exact replica, only some little differences. Like, the PlayStation Move, that's a copy of the Wii, because Wii is motion control, and since the Wii did so phenomenal, like 11 years since it released, PlayStation and Xbox thought it was a good idea to say, hey, the Wii did so good, so why not make our own version of the Wii and see how popular that will get. And it turns out at least that wasn't as popular as the Wii, because, you know, PlayStation released the PlayStation Move and then Xbox released the Xbox Kinect, which those both had motion controls, and those both came out after, like, 1 year after the Wii came out. Talk about unoriginality. This is the part where I'm talking about the consoles. Sony and Microsoft just don't put any sort of effort into their consoles. They copy Nintendo, and they're all of a sudden proud of what they did. Nintendo is innovative, not Sony and Microsoft. They just steal others' ideas. They're not innovative in the slightest. Anyway, we're here. Time to get on to number 1. Well, we're finally here. The number 1 reason why Nintendo is better than Sony and Microsoft. And this reason is what makes Nintendo Nintendo. It's a very special reason, and it's very important to talk about. The number 1 reason is the games. Look at all those games. There's much more. There's like way more than just that. But that's the best picture I can find. But I mean, look at that. That's Nintendo. Nintendo is like known for their games. That's what makes them special. That's what keeps a special place in my heart. Nintendo cares about their fans, and they work so hard on their games. It's crazy. They put effort into it, and then they're proud of it. They're happy what it turned out to be. They love what they did. They love the work they did. It's very special to me, and to everyone, like the trillion of people out there that love Nintendo. It's a special place, and it holds a special place in my heart. Nintendo has no idea how much it means to me and everyone else. They work so hard. They've been in the business for over 30 years. Sony started making games in 1994, and Xbox started making games in 2001. The Xbox is as old as me, and it's just crazy. I mean, Nintendo has worked there for 30 years, and they still make good games, and they're still creative since day one. And Sony and Microsoft have been doing this for less years, and they're already starting to lose creativity. It's insane. Like, good job, Nintendo. Good job. But before we end the video, there's something we need to talk about. Before we end the video, I thought we should do a little fun thing where I rank from first, which is best, to to third, which is worst, based on video game companies between Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. And I'm gonna put it up here right now. As you can see, as it's obvious, Number 1 is Nintendo, because it's most of my videos. Most of my videos are Nintendo. And, you know, I talk about Nintendo all the time, and this video was about why Nintendo is better than Sony and Microsoft. So obvious, that's number 1. Number 2 is Sony. Yes, I like Sony a little bit better than Microsoft. Sony, I'm like in the middle. I mean, and the reason why I like Sony better than Microsoft is because I feel like while Microsoft is kind of like Sony where they're not that creative, I feel like Sony in its early years was very creative, just like Nintendo. Like with Crash Bandicoot, that's like one of my favorite games of all time, and that's a Sony game. It was made for PlayStation, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. I'm pretty sure you never would hear me say that one of my favorite games is a PlayStation game, but that's true. Number 3 is Xbox. Out of these 3 companies, Xbox is the only one that I genuinely despise. I hate Xbox. None of the games appeal to me. They're just stupid in my opinion, and they're just boring. They're not really fun, and it's like, and they're never creative like Sony, and they just don't try with anything they do with their games, and that's why I think Xbox is the worst. I hate Xbox. Like, I could play Nintendo and PlayStation games on my channel, but I'll never touch an Xbox game near my YouTube channel. You will never see me play an Xbox game. It's not happening. But yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Anyways, thanks for watching. Peace. See you next time.